modernity often move without compromise, leaving small settlements in Minnesota like frozen artifacts in the cold Midwestern landscape. Behind its scenery of thousands of lakes and fertile farming regions, Minnesota holds two parallel realities of disappearance: towns that have completely died and become historical ruins, and fading settlements now counting down the years they have left. Cracked asphalt, red brick bank buildings with windows boarded shut, and empty radar towers in the woods remain as real physical evidence. This journey through 15 locations reveals a melancholy portrait of communities that have vanished, and others still fighting not to be forgotten by time. Perched along the cold northern shore of Lake Superior in Cook County, Taconite Harbor stands as one of Minnesota's largest and most cinematic industrial ghost towns. This planned settlement was established in the 1950s by the Erie Mining Company. The town's economic glory collapsed almost overnight in the 1980s, when the steel industry fell into a severe recession, forcing the company to shut down all port operations and quickly evacuate residents from the housing area. Taconite Harbor today presents a powerful and intact post-apocalyptic scene. Along the lake stand massive concrete walls from the old shipping docks, a monumental power station with shattered windows, and rusted railroad tracks swallowed by thorny brush. The once neat residential streets have been split apart by wild pine growth, creating a silent atmosphere where the only sound is the roar of Lake Superior waves crashing against the empty docks. From the frozen industrial harbor in the north, we head to Fillmore County, where the ghost town of Forestville is preserved like a 19th century time capsule. Unlike ordinary ghost towns left to decay, Forestville's physical remains now sit inside a protected state park and are managed as an interactive historic site. Visitors who come to this remote place can find the old Mayan store, the former post office, and the homes of early settlers still standing in original condition, complete with antique furniture inside. Yes, the atmosphere in Forestville feels very unusual. The town seems deliberately frozen in 1899, presenting the aesthetic of a long-ago economic failure neatly repackaged for tourism. The town itself was founded in 1859 in a fertile river valley. It once grew prosperous as a regional trade center with dozens of stores, horse inns, and a busy flour mill. Meanwhile, in the isolated hill country of Lake County, there is the iconic Finland radar base. This air defense complex was fully operated by the United States Air Force beginning in 1950, serving as an early warning radar outpost against the possibility of Soviet bomber attacks coming from the Arctic. Its story ended in 1980 when advances in satellite technology made the costly ground radar system obsolete, leading to the base's closure and the rapid withdrawal of all personnel. Cracked thick concrete bunkers, empty radar tower foundations staring into the sky, and rows of wooden barracks with doors left hanging open create a deeply dystopian atmosphere, reminding us of the military paranoia of the past now left behind to rot with time. Yes, the Finland Air Force Station complex now stands as a chilling military dead town in the dense northern forests of Minnesota. The military tension on Finland's hilltop shifts into a quiet spiritual scene along the Cook County shore, home to the legendary remains of Chippewa City. This historic settlement was first established in the mid-19th century as a major community center for immigrants and native Ojibwe residents. Chippewa City's disappearance happened slowly as commercial timber in the surrounding forests ran out, and a deadly flu outbreak spread in the early 20th century. The only major physical evidence marking Chippewa City today is the old wooden St. Francis Xavier Church, still standing beside the Lake Superior Coastal Highway. This Catholic church, built by Jesuit missionaries in the late 19th century, has been preserved in its original condition without modern electricity, giving off a strong mystical aura when thick lake fog begins to cover its faded wooden walls. From the silence of Chippewa City's northern shore, we move southeast toward the hills of Goodhue County, the location of the clay industry town of Claybank. Born from the ceramic and pottery boom of the late 19th century, Claybank grew as a small commercial settlement dedicated entirely to exploiting the high-quality clay deposits beneath its ground. Its life ended completely after the commercial clay reserves were declared exhausted and its main factory facility burned down in a major fire, leaving investors with no capital to rebuild. Domestic life in Claybank vanished without a trace, turning the former settlement area into open farmland. The collapse of Claybank's clay industry reminds us of the bloody mid-19th century conflict that erased Beaver Falls in Renville County. Isolated inside the Minnesota River Valley, Beaver Falls was once a highly promising county seat with rapid population growth, supported by a law office, a courthouse, and several water-powered flour mills. The town's history suffered a fatal break during the Dakota War of 1862, when the settlement became one of the main attack targets, destroying much of its wooden building infrastructure. Although it was briefly rebuilt after the war, Beaver Falls permanently lost its vital function when the regional railroad was built away from the valley, forcing county leaders to move the government center to Olivia. This mass abandonment sealed Beaver Falls' fate as a true ghost town. Exploring the woods of Beaver Falls today reveals an old 19th century stone arch bridge still standing solidly across a small stream. In addition, there is Nininger, a town that represents failed urban ambition in tragic form. Founded in the mid-1850s by an eccentric politician and land speculator named Ignatius Donnelly, Nininger was designed with a highly ambitious blueprint to become a giant new metropolis on the bluffs of the Mississippi River and overthrow the economic dominance of its neighbor, St. Paul. Nininger's grand dream shattered before it could become real because of the global financial crisis known as the Panic of 1857. The property speculation bubble burst instantly, bankrupting investors and forcing construction workers to abandon their half-finished projects to find work elsewhere. Nininger never recovered from that economic blow and shrank drastically until it was erased from the urban administrative map. Today, the area once projected to become a high-rise business district is only private farmland and quiet village roads. Then the silence of an old industry crushed by time is reflected in Shell City. Founded in the late 19th century, this settlement began as a busy logging frontier town, supported by a water-powered sawmill. But Shell City's greatest uniqueness, the thing that made it a local legend, was its clothing button industry, which used millions of freshwater pearl mussel shells. Exploring its main area today, only brings you to a quiet campground in the forest, the remains of old wooden dam posts rotting in the river, and several mounds of ancient mussel shells buried in the soil, a silent proof of a town that disappeared after draining its natural wealth. Shell City's failure brings us to a similar fate suffered by the ghost town of Vicksburg, whose location is buried in the history of Renville County. Standing on the north bank of the Minnesota River, Vicksburg was founded during the golden age of inland steamboat transport, with hopes of becoming a major transit port for farm commodities from the western part of the state. Vicksburg's death came from a combination of natural disaster and technology. Major flash floods in the river valley constantly damaged dock infrastructure, followed by the construction of a railroad line across higher ground outside Vicksburg. Its landscape today is completely clear of domestic buildings. The area has returned to quiet riparian forest, and the only remaining historical marker is a small bronze plaque beside a dirt road. From the quiet riparian forest, we move west toward Chippewa County to see the physical remains of the dead town of Glueck. Yes, Glueck has technically lost its entire domestic population and administrative function for decades. This settlement originally grew along the regional railroad line as a main collection point for wheat and corn grain from farmers in the surrounding district. Its current visual uniqueness lies in the monstrous scale of its infrastructure standing without residents. Beside the silent rail line, a giant gray concrete grain elevator rises high into the sky, giving off a cold and empty industrial atmosphere. From total abandonment, we now look at the category of small towns that are still inhabited, but are dying and at risk of becoming ghost towns. We begin with Whalan, tucked inside a dramatic limestone bluff valley, which currently has only around 60 permanent residents. This old farming town has slowly lost its young population as they migrate in large numbers to metropolitan areas in search of more practical career opportunities. Walking along the main street presents a deeply melancholy view of a community shrinking toward its lowest point. Most of its original business district has died, leaving an old wooden railroad depot now standing empty and locked beside the tourist bike trail. Although the town receives temporary life from seasonal cyclists passing through in summer, Whalan returns in winter to being a completely quiet settlement. Next, heading toward the South Dakota border in Lac Qui Parle County, we find the town of Bellingham. With its population now falling below 140 people, it becomes one of the most extreme examples of a shrinking town in the rural Midwest. This town, once a noisy farming community center with its own high school, bank, and various retail stores, has had to watch its social assets close one by one because of massive demographic aging. A journey through Bellingham today captures a main street that is both sad and moving. Rows of former buildings from the 1920s stand side by side with their windows boarded up, while the road asphalt has begun to crack and grow weeds because the town's maintenance budget keeps being cut drastically. The death of social facilities in Bellingham finds its twin in the small town of Comstock, which is also struggling to hold on to its last remaining breath. With fewer than 90 residents, Comstock is a settlement that seems to be swallowed by the scale of the farmland around it. The town's identity is dominated by an old rusting grain elevator beside the railroad tracks, which ironically still processes crops while the settlement beneath it slowly decays. Daily life in Comstock moves with a very slow and quiet rhythm, where the only break in social stillness comes when a farmer's large tractor occasionally cuts through the town's dirt roads. One of its most iconic entities is the two-story white school building, which also shows how deeply this town faces a crisis in education. If Comstock suffers from inland agricultural isolation, the small town of Manhattan Beach in Crow Wing County presents a completely different story of decline. Administratively, Manhattan Beach is listed as one of the smallest towns in Minnesota, with a permanent population of only around 60 people. But the town's uniqueness lies in its physical character, which does not look ruined or dystopian like Bellingham or Comstock. In Manhattan Beach, life centers on extreme and unstable population swings. In summer, the town looks alive with rows of luxury cabins and waterfront restaurants filled with vacation travelers, creating the illusion of a prosperous settlement. But once fall ends, all the tourists leave, turning Manhattan Beach into a quiet, modern ghost settlement. Finally, there is a town called Taunton, which faces its future with very real gloom. Today, it is inhabited mostly by elderly residents, with the total population shrinking to around 130 people. Like many small towns along the old Chicago and Northwestern Transportation Company rail line, Taunton has been unable to compete with economic centralization, which forced nearly all commercial businesses to move to larger district towns. Its physical condition today is a pure representation of rural community disappearance in Middle America. The local Catholic Church, once the center of resident spiritual interaction, has now been closed and stripped of its cross, leaving a silent stone building on the corner. Old downtown stores have been converted into private farm machine storage or left empty until their wood bends from moisture in the air. This exploration of 15 settlements in Minnesota gives a reflective conclusion about the dynamic nature of human living spaces. Whether they are towns that have completely died and become historical ruins, or small settlements now shrinking toward their lowest point, all of them prove that a community's existence is never permanent. Abandoned architecture and silent roads left behind by residents stand as real social monuments. In the end, they remind us that amid the fast pace of modernity, today's geographic comfort and economic glory always hold the potential to become quiet again, decay, and be fully reclaimed by nature as the current of time moves away.